everybody, welcome back to Real Results with Coach Joe. I'm your host, Coach Joe Villegas. This is the show where we help you to improve your health, increase your wealth, and live a more fulfilling life. And with me, I've got a very special guest, somebody who was right by my side when I first started coaching, and that is Coach Justin Doran. Justin, thanks for being on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
How are we doing?
I'm doing well.
Fantastic,
yeah,
fantastic.
I'm excited.
So, Justin, you are the owner of CrossFit Nassau in Princeton, New Jersey. And this is where, like I said, where I cut my teeth in the coaching world. So I owe a lot to you and to that establishment for sure. But what I want the viewers to learn is sort of your background in getting into the fitness industry. Because I think it's a little different than the traditional, hey, I had a side hustle and then I just decided to get into fitness. You've lived and breathed this thing forever, basically. So tell us a little bit about how you got started.
Yeah, so I got into fitness just because I enjoyed it. I like to work out.
Yes.
I like to learn about movement in general, and so really getting into coaching was more just I was interested more for myself, to be honest. And then I was asked to join a gym, and actually own a gym, and so I got a little bit of experience doing that and realized that. In addition to sort of learning about fitness, doing it for my own needs, I really enjoyed spreading that and actually helping other people out. And so I would say, in the beginning, I was pretty young, and so like a lot of young 20-year-olds, it was more, I would say, selfish. Sure. And then as I grew, as I matured, my sort of reason for doing all this has also evolved.
Yes.
And so, yeah, just the experience of helping people out. Seeing people start from basically no experience to eventually stick with a program and in certain cases dramatically change their lives has been really fun. It's been really rewarding. So yeah, I would say it's been a little bit of an evolution, but started with just a love and a passion for fitness, and then eventually that grew to a love for helping people.
100%. So it's really that growth and contribution over time and growing in that journey. The cool thing is I kind of got to do this in parallel with you, at least for a little while, like close to a decade. Now, this was at CrossFit Nassau, at a CrossFit gym, which I think to some people, they're in a couple camps. It's either you do CrossFit and you don't shut up about it, you tell everybody you know, or maybe it sounds like something that's intimidating, or maybe you heard, hey, I might get injured doing that or something like that. So what I'd love to do is be able to educate the viewers a little bit on, not that it could be the best program. The jury, we don't know, jury's out yet, but what I'd love to do is educate them a bit on, like, if they're thinking, hey, this seems dangerous or seems too intense for me, like, what would you tell somebody who wants to start that fitness journey, maybe is thinking about CrossFit? Like, how do we help them take that first step?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. And yeah, there's a lot of opinions about CrossFit. I think there's a lot of misconceptions. I think in general, the people that are new and inexperienced that come to me, when I talk to them, the hesitation is largely sort of the fear that a lot of people have with anything in life is just sort of the unknown, right? So they don't really know what they're getting themselves into, outside of maybe what they saw, on a YouTube clip or what maybe
Netflix or something.
Yeah, exactly, right? And I think in general, if they go to a gym that has professional coaches that are going to walk them through where they're at, they're going to figure out where they're at, assess them properly, and then, like any good program, if you're learning, whether it's fitness or math, you're going to figure out where that person is at, and then give them enough stimulus so that they actually improve, but they don't get super discouraged. They're not at risk of getting hurt. That's the ideal. So I would say for anyone that's nervous to start, whether it's CrossFit or really any fitness program in general, I would say maybe be open to talking to somebody that's an expert and can help you out. And then from there, just making sure that you're starting at a level that is not threatening, and then building gradually, right? And what that's even if you're doing it at your home on a stationary bike or going out running. I think a big mistake that people make is they have this attitude that of course if I want to get fit, I have to go through all this pain.
Right. Beast mode. You gotta go hardcore.
No pain, no gain, right?
No.
And ultimately, the amount of intensity and effort that you put into it, although important, is probably not the most important thing. I think number one, getting started is the most important thing, and so making that initial jump, and then from there, just being consistent. And so, if we were to look at progress over a 10-year period, you don't really need to have an incredible amount of intensity for a given workout if you're stretching it out over that long period of time. So I would say making sure that you're going gradually would be another really good thing to consider.
Yeah, so I mean, there's like a whole bunch of nuggets in there that I want to uncover some of them, but the one you just mentioned was more subtly, was looking at a longer time horizon of like 10 years, right? To most people, myself included, like 10 years, like that's so long. But what we see out like in social media or on TV is like 21-day fat furnace, 12 weeks to lose 50 pounds or whatever ridiculous claims are out there today. But one thing that helped me a ton in my journey, because I mean, when I started out coming to CrossFit, and this is back before there was a bit more of a prescription to what we were doing there, and I woke up the next day and could barely move. It's not like that anymore, thankfully. I walked in and I was about 300 pounds and weak as a bird, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know where to start, anything like that. And I think what you're telling folks is, hey, come in, give it a shot, work with a professional who knows what they're doing and has your best interest over the long term. And really for me, shifting my mindset to looking out like 10, 20, 30 years, like, hey, I want to work out when I'm 80. What I feel like it does, and I don't know if you agree, is it takes a lot of the pressure off of the client, of the person. So rather than going from, oh my gosh, I've got 12 weeks to lose 20 pounds, it's, I don't care about losing 20 pounds in 12 weeks, unless there's some event you have to be a certain weight for. It's as long as I'm putting my best foot forward each and every day, I'll get to where I want to go, right? The pressure of time is not there. So my question to you is, how do you sort of like broach that subject? Because the programming most people have in their head is, you got to do it now, beast mode on, hardcore, I need this done by summer, versus like, how do we make this an ongoing lifestyle? So like, what would you tell the viewers if they're saying, yeah, Justin, this sounds great, but I need to get jacked and tan like today? How do we kind of start to shift that mindset so they can have the longevity factor playing in their favor?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And so you finished by saying shift the mindset. And I think it really starts with that for sure. And so whenever someone walks into the door, if they don't have any experience, that's going to be the first thing that we consider is sort of, well, what are they trying to do? What's the timeline? We always ask that. If it is something very ambitious, right? Like they're trying to lose like 50 pounds in a month. Like we're going to sit down and kind of talk about like, well, what is sort of like our safe and healthy recommendations for weight loss, for instance. And furthermore, we'll also look at sort of what is required for all of this stuff to actually happen. So I try not to naysay people's goals and values. I try not to judge what they're capable of, but I do talk to them very straight and let them know, hey, if this is your goal and this is the timeline that you have for this goal, this is what it's going to take. And there's no shortcuts, right? There's no getting around the amount of time, the amount of effort that you're going to need to put in.
For sure.
And I think typically when we start to lay that out, we just lay out the facts, people realize that, oh, this might not be a very realistic goal. That's usually my experience. From there, once we get people sort of creating goals that are a little bit more realistic, a little bit more healthy, I think that there's other things that we do to shift their mindset. So, for instance, I think in general, getting people to think about some of like the small victories, right? Like, okay, let's definitely keep an eye on the horizon, on the big picture, but day to day, if we're constantly looking at that, you're going to get discouraged. Day to day, you want to look at what type of goal do you have for that specific workout? Or maybe it's week to week, month to month. You get to see some actual physical progress, and there's different ways to measure that. At our gym, we like to measure our actual performance, and so we can see that if you did a particular lift or a workout at the beginning of the month, and then again at the end of the month, and that's improved, then obviously that's a cool thing to see. And I think obviously they're getting better, and people love that. People enjoy seeing that small progress.
Yes.
So I think that's another way to shift people's mindset, really away from being like too fixated on those long-term goals. And I think that we can relate to this with many things in life. You can't be looking at, like, for instance, your bank account. If you're trying to get to a certain amount of money for retirement, you can't look at that every single day.
No,
you're going to drive yourself crazy.
Yeah,
right?
you lose your mind for sure.
And in many ways, fitness is the same way, right? We're just going to make these like really small but very consistent deposits.
Yes.
We're not going to look at the bank account too often.
No.
We're going to just really try to enjoy the process of going in and working out.
Definitely. So we talk a lot about like the workouts, right? Like the WOD, as it's called in CrossFit, right? The workout of the day, for those who haven't heard that yet. But what I've always appreciated about your coaching, and I think this is something that's important for viewers to know, is you've always taken a very holistic approach to each individual person. So like you'll have those conversations of like, hey, maybe let's look at your nutrition a little bit, or hey, the mental side of things, what's going on between the ears, let's reset, kind of level set expectations of what your goals are and things like that. Like for the viewers who are watching, they say, okay, Justin, this sounds great, maybe you're selling me on coming to the CrossFit thing and trying that out, which is fine. What are maybe some things they could adjust in their lifestyle today that cover things other than just the workout? So maybe, hey, here's a quick nutrition tip or something like that they can do at home on their own.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. Difficult to answer because obviously it depends on the person's goal.
100%.
For sure.
And consult your physician before you start an exercise program.
Yeah,
Just
no,
don't mess this up.
absolutely. But I would say that if I could maybe address the common person that comes into the gym, I would say when I ask people, what are you looking to do? What are your hopes? It usually falls into one of a couple of goals, and usually it's maybe something related to weight, right? Either they want to gain weight or lose weight. Oftentimes people say, I just want to be generally healthy and fit. Sometimes people say that they want to feel better, as they've grown older, maybe there's certain things that they can't do that they want to get back and do. And so with that in mind, I think that in general, most people could look at like the big macro things that affect our health and well-being. And so nutrition, as you mentioned, I would add to that sleep, and then from there, even things like your stress levels. And so if we were to look at things that just someone could do to get started, in addition to, of course, fitness, I would say ask yourself, are you getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep?
Right.
That's going to have.
Is that usually where you start with folks?
A lot of times I'll start just asking about sleep, just because if we start talking about nutrition, it can be.
It goes a whole rabbit hole, which is a rabbit hole I kind of want to get into with you a little bit.
Yeah.
So let's take a quick pause there. We're going to come right back after this commercial break, so don't want to miss out. Let's go.
Aloha, Joe Silva here with Kukua Technologies. I'm excited to see you on Tuesdays on Morning Coffee for our tech tips.
Let's face it, lawyers get a bad rap. I'm Erin Brucey, host of Legal Breakdown, where we dissect legal topics for the everyday viewer, with a mix of interesting guests to talk about current events and hot legal topics. Let's work together to make the law accessible and relevant to everyone. Catch us every week on RVN Television.
A stroke can be easy to detect. A loved one can't speak, perhaps they can't move. But there's another sign of a stroke that many of us can't see. It's called spatial neglect, and it can occur during or after a stroke, causing distorted visual movements. Fortunately, there's a solution by using optical prism technology during rehabilitation. If you or a loved one have experienced a stroke, ask your doctor about spatial neglect. Spatial neglect. See the whole picture at KesslerFoundation.org.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Real Results. I'm your host, Coach Joe Villegas, and I'm here today with one of my mentors, Coach Justin Doran, owner of CrossFit Nassau. Now, right before the commercial break, we were getting to like the juicy stuff. I want to get back into this so we don't lose our flow here. So we talked about some things folks can do in other areas than just their workouts. While working out is sort of the highlighted piece that people see, right? Like they're lifting really heavy, they're doing something really intense, right? Beast mode's on, all that stuff's great. What are some things folks could do at home today? Let's say they say, hey, I don't really want to do the CrossFit thing. What are some things maybe in the realm of nutrition or sleep, things you'd advise people to could do, easy habits they could just take away today?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I think that sleep is super important, and 100%. So I think that just looking at sort of how many hours of sleep are you getting, and then what is the quality, and so making sure that the new recommendations that I've heard, 7 to 9 would really be more ideal. I know some people would think that it might even be less, but I would say 7 to 9, trying to get at least somewhere close to that.
How are you measuring that, by the way? Like, do you use wearables or anything? Have you ever tried those, like a Whoop band or Oura Ring or anything?
I don't.
You're old school, dude.
Yeah. I think for the most part, if you look at sort of how you feel, if you look at the clock when you go to sleep, and then you should ideally have a consistent bedtime and wake up time.
Yes.
From there, so long as you're not, your sleep isn't being disturbed a whole lot, that one's fairly simple.
Definitely.
And you know, I'm certainly interested in wearables. I'm curious to see how accurate it is when it comes to measuring your sleep.
Yep.
My understanding is that if you want to be really accurate, you know, you have to have someone to actually just observe you, and that's why people go to sleep studies. But I think you know, you could certainly use wearables, and then I think just in general, having and ideally, if it's possible for your lifestyle, having a bedtime and a wake-up time that's very consistent, and that consistency is, you know, that's in part important because if you build that habit, you're gonna do it more often, right? So it builds the consistency builds on itself, right?
No doubt. You know, one of the biggest things that helped me in the realm of sleep was I started using a CPAP machine, right? So I'm a bigger guy, thicker neck, whatever, and I snore at night. And that machine helps to, you know, for those who don't know, it pushes air down through your airway. It's a constant pressure of air, and it helps you to basically stop snoring and have more restful sleep. And quite literally, like probably without exaggeration, it saved my life. Like this weird machine. It's not the sexiest thing to put on before you go to bed, but the quality of my sleep was so much better. Like I would wake up, I used to wake up, and by 9 a.m. I'd be like, oh, I don't want to go back to bed. Now, not right now because I've got a 3-month-old that won't let me sleep very much, but all that aside, before then, I would wake up and be like, all right, I'm gonna go clean the gutters, I'm gonna get all these chores done. Like I had all this energy just for making that shift, and it basically bled into every other area, right? So I had the energy to get my meal prep done, and I had the energy to go work out and hit it hard and do the things I had to do, but it all stemmed from sleep. So, that's obviously great advice. Like get a consistent wake time, bedtime, try and get that 7 to 9 hour window, and make sure it's quality sleep, uninterrupted, phenomenal. So there's a few other areas you mentioned, stress being one of them. I think mental well-being is such a hot topic right now, right? Obviously the pandemic, we all know that. But even like in the workplace, that's a huge thing, right? People are like just leaving their jobs and either going out on their own or they're working for other companies because there's available jobs there for them, right? Because they're putting their mental health and well-being first. Now, I don't know of too many other gyms. I know CrossFit Nassau does this, is actually talking with members about those lifestyle factors. Like, hey, how you feeling? Like, how you really doing? Right. And so when it comes to the topic of stress, like what are some things you advise clients, members, things to do to help them reduce that and kind of, get that mental well-being factor back in check? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think really important is to recognize how you cope with that stress. And because a lot of us, we all experience stress, but a lot of us will reach for things that are maybe less ideal. And so
food,
sure, food. In particular, unhealthy snacks is a popular way to cope with stress. Alcohol is another big one, of course. Smoking, and if we look at we could certainly look at a list of unhealthy coping mechanisms and then a list of healthy mechanisms, and that would be, working out would certainly be my top recommendation.
Biased opinion.
But it, even according to like the American Psychology Association, it is a very effective way to cope with
Works
in
your
stress.
favor then, for sure.
And I would also include things like going outside for a walk, listening to music or reading, doing something like creative in that regard. I think all of those things would be positive coping mechanisms. And so I think it would start with just sort of being aware of like when you're experiencing that stress, like what are you reaching for instinctually? Because most of us are sort of doing that out of habit, right? Most of us are coping with that amount of stress without even thinking about it.
Right.
And so developing that awareness, And then if it is something that you would think is negative, then see if you can shift it to something else. And the nice thing is that it would be challenging at first, no doubt, to sort of like stop grabbing cookies or chips or whatever every time you're stressed at work. If you immediately replace that with something like, say, go out for a walk, or, I would even just tell people, like, go do some push-ups. It doesn't necessarily have to be with the intention of, like, it has to fit into my plan.
Right.
But just that physical exercise is going to, number one, help you cope with the stress, and then number two, it'll hopefully, get your mind off of whatever it is.
Kind of breaking that pattern, right? Because we're creatures of habit. There's no two ways about it. So you're saying it's like, okay, once you build the awareness of, hey, when this trigger happens, whatever that is for you, I know I reach for Girl Scout cookies. Don't know how they got there, but they keep showing up to my house. Or, hey, I reach for a cigarette, or I reach for alcohol. Instead, it's let's redirect that energy into anything else that's positive. I know for me, like, I like to walk outside, like get out in nature. The street I live on has a lot of trees. It's really nice. It's quiet. That helps me just to kind of decompress, even if it's 5 or 10 minutes. Put an audiobook on, some music on, I walk my dog, whatever. That to me is like guaranteed I'm gonna feel better by the time I come in. And to your point, like with working out, it's a great stress reliever. I've never met anybody who has left the gym in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think that exists unless something like really bad happened. But for the most part, everybody who finishes their workout and they're safe and they're good to go, they leave there in a better mood. Now, I wanna kind of shift gears a little bit, and this is a topic I think is really important to obviously folks who come to your facility and to folks who want to be successful when it comes to their health and wellness. And I think it sort of helps with all the different aspects we're talking about. And that is the environment that you put yourself in, right? Like nothing, in my opinion, nothing has a bigger impact on the trajectory of your life than where you place yourself and who you surround yourself with, right? Like if you hang out with 9 people who smoke cigarettes, you're probably gonna become the 10th. On the flip side, if you hang out with 9 millionaires, you'll probably become the 10th, hopefully, right? We'll see what happens. But can we talk a little bit about that environment community factor at CrossFit Nassau specifically? Because not all of these gyms are made equal, right? It's an affiliation, it's not a franchise. So I want to talk about just like what makes it different at that facility. I know how special it is, but that kind of like X factor is what helps people to be more successful. Let's talk about that a little bit. And I'm getting excited, so I run on and on about it. But let's talk about the importance of environment for people who want to be successful in fitness.
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think that it is true, obviously, that the environment that you're in is critical, and I think that anyone that has experienced a gym atmosphere that is conducive to those goals, and then goes back to like a traditional gym where, maybe you're it's a very large space, so there's lots of different people. Certainly, I'm sure they're all fine people, but not necessarily in line with your goals, your values, what you're trying to do. It's different, right? It definitely is challenging. And as far as what we would experience at our gym, I think, of course, we have a lot of people that are more, we'll say, invested in their health and their fitness. They generally enjoy it, right? I would think that the majority of the people that do it, they enjoy it, and so they're excited. Yeah, well, I mean, to be fair, most people that work out at a traditional gym, I would say, they work out because they have to, and not necessarily because they enjoy it.
Yes.
And that's that's a very large factor for why I think people fail at fitness.
Yes.
They have enough things, obligations that they have to do throughout the day.
Right.
Working out and doing something they don't enjoy is just one more to add to that list, and oftentimes it gets ditched, right?
Right. You feel like they're kind of like dragging themselves by their belt loops to just check the box and do this thing because they think they have to, right? I got to wake up at 5 a.m. and I got to meditate and wear shoes with my little toes sticking out and I got to work out and do all those things. But in reality, like the easy fix is just put yourself in a place with other people that want to do the same thing.
Who are excited, right?
Who are excited
to work out.
They're invested in it, exactly.
And you crack the joke about people never shutting up about CrossFit. I mean, it is, I think that in general, it would probably be wise to have like a diverse conversations at parties, things that don't necessarily just relate to CrossFit. But when you're in the gym, if you're surrounded by other people that are really excited, it definitely makes it more fun. It makes it a lot easier to push yourself and to get there every day. And so, yeah, I think that's clearly very important.
For sure. And I think the bonds you build with people, here we are, like, you're on my show, right? And I've learned so much from you, like you've helped to change the trajectory of my life. I would have not gotten that at a conventional gym, right? Or maybe, but most likely not, probably not. As a result of this community, I've been able to attend weddings and see children be born, not see in action, but like, children be born and engagements and all these sorts of things as a result of that. And I think kind of like an added bonus is I've focused on my fitness, but it's the relationships that were kind of really the reward that I got out of being a part of that community, which is so like invaluable, so cool to me.
Yeah, no, I don't think anyone, or almost no one, goes to the gym with that goal in mind. Some people, if they're new in town, they recognize that this is a great way to meet new people.
Yes.
But I think for most people, they come in with a problem relating to their health, or the way they feel about themselves. But then if they stick around, they recognize that, this is an added bonus.
Yes.
And so I think that certainly any type of activity where you're going to be spending many hours throughout the week doing, you would like it to have, we'll say, a lot of bang for your buck,
yeah,
right?
100%.
Both time and money. And so I think it's definitely a common sentiment that people will recognize that, they make some great friends. Maybe they meet their future partner.
Yeah, who knows? Seen that happen a couple times at
Well, just 2 weeks ago we had a wedding, and
That's right.
looking around at all the people for the bride's friends and family. Many of them were members, so we actually did a workout the day of the wedding.
Yeah, maybe you converted some new members as a result of the wedding. Who knows? You never know. But yeah, so just to kind of wrap things up, I think the real take-home piece of all the things we talked about, which are a lot of golden nuggets in this episode, but the big thing is, if you want to make a change, put yourself in the right environment. And a gym like yours is a great place to start. So Justin, where can folks find you if they want to learn from the master himself, they want to check out CrossFit Nassau, like where can they go to check you out?
Yeah, I would say www.crossfitnassau.com, our website, is a really good resource. If you want to check out photos, videos, you could check us out on Instagram at CF Nassau, and we're of course on Facebook under the same name as well.
Fantastic, awesome. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks everybody for checking it out. We'll see you on the next episode of Real Results with Coach Joe.